Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. I'm going to put this up as a few separate videos because we're covering a lot in regards to this, but I want to have a look at ancient measures and some recent finds, especially in regards to stone circles and to Stonehenge. And well, Mercury or Hermes, the god of weights and measures, Thoth, god of weights and measures, Sheshet, Nuar-Fuzi, also gods connected to geometry, astronomy and science, wisdom in general, and so ancient geometry, ancient knowledge embedded in ancient measures. This will be about with a focus on what's called the Folkestone drums, which have this geometric patterns in there as well, but has a prototype bar or a way of standardizing measures, ancient measures. So this is the Folkestone drums. Hermeticism, weights and knowledge, an ancient system connected with the quadrivium, but geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, and music as well. So the Folkestone drums, there we have them there, gods of geometry, astronomy, weights and measures, Thoth, Sheshet, Hermes, Mercury, Nuar-Fuzi, and others, and how these drums, are they tools where we can find an ancient standard of weights and measures, which I must say, and I'll cover this in the next few episodes, blend wonderfully with harmonic numbers. All recent, I've still haven't quite finished the series on 33, for instance, 33 feet, and the long foot. Wonderful connections going on in there. That's to come in the future. But so if you were to take 10, like a long foot is 1.056 feet. We'll look at that. I will show that better. But 1.056 feet is a long foot. So if you had 10 long feet, 10.56 feet, you could wrap that around this stone 10 times. That would wrap around 8 times, and that 7 times. Now that's interesting because what were the units? So 12 inches per foot. We don't know exactly what the subdivisions of other ancient units were, even that well, I'll get into it because it is the long foot or the megalithic yard, which have these wonderful connections to Doric, Ionic, Egyptian royal cubits, and the allegedly modern English foot. So whether they were in use or have we'll look at that because there's some interesting connections. Now, firstly, I'll give a shout out to Dave Hanrahan. I'll put his YouTube link in there. I'll try to remember to put his G Plus channel because he was the one who shared this recent. He knows that I'm into my measures, and I've mentioned the long foot before, so he's sent me this link. This was recently hit the news. He visited the Farnborough henges, so for instance, you can find some videos there on him, linked to his YouTube and the G Plus channel, but G Plus won't be around for long. Anyway, just Folkestone, when you draw them like that, they look a bit like emojis, but that's something else. So, are these Folkestone drums tools for standard measures, which we can find in ancient sites? And I first come across the Longfoot a few years ago in Encyclopedia Britannica. Now you can see that the Stonehenge article has been updated December 12th, 2018, which was the same time that this article hit the newspapers, and it was written by Mike Parker Pearson. That's interesting as well, relevant. But what we have is this Longfoot, 1.056 feet, which is also referred to as a Persian foot as well. So if that's a 12-foot ruler, that would be one long foot. That's how. So they've just rounded it off slightly. If you follow through, but so it's exactly the same number. They've just rounded off. Now that's such a small. That's splitting a split hair. But the long Persian foot, and Mark Parker Pearson, who was the one who's recently published on this. So I'll put all these links will be in the description as well. British Journal for the History of Mathematics, the Folkestone and Levant devices, measuring devices from the time of Stonehenge. I'll put some more links in, again, these links and some more detailed stuff in the description. But going back, so this was updated 2012. You go back about 2007, points out, so Stonehenge Phase 1, before the stone circle that most people identify it with. What we have is the measures there. So 360 long foot outside, For ditch, 330 long feet, 300, 270. Also the station rectangle, which has a 12 to 5 proportions, that creates a 5, 12, 13 second Pythagorean triplet, Pythagorean theorem. But if we go back, and what's going on here now, this concept is one that's still with us today. So for instance, Greenwich Observatory has this plaque which shows the yard or 2 feet, so 3 feet or is a yard, or 2, so nice 2 to 3 reference there. Also have 1 foot, but the meter prototype bar is another one where all our measures are defined by this. We go back to this to refer to it. So the bronze yard, this is an example used in the US, where we have a, in the vault, in the palace, in the university, where we have a tool from which we can calibrate our measures with. Are these Folkestone drums connected? Well, I believe so. I think there's a lot more to it than just that now. The Salamis stone, for instance, Mark Wilson Jones, just again mentioned this recently, the Doric foot, the Ionic foot, and the allegedly modern English or the common Greek foot, and you can even see the outline of a foot there, is embedded in this stone. So the Salamis stone has systems, a conversion tool or a calibration tool for weights and measures, specifically. Allegedly modern English foot, it's actually quite old. Now, why is historic, Ionic, and the common or English foot important? Again, Mark Wilson Jones points out that the columns of the Parthenon, and when you measure a column, you should include the architrave. Actually, you should include the column and the architrave, but what we have there is 45 Doric feet equals 48 English or common feet, or 50 Ionic. So we have 3 different systems coming together at a wonderful series. Now, 48 to 50 is a 24 to 45 ratio, and 50 to 45 is a 15 to 16 ratio. You could go on a long time about that, but the Parthenon. So what we have is a harmonized system, which is practical reasons. So different stonemasons from across the Greek world could come together. They could use their local measuring tool and be able to calibrate it. But I think there's a lot more going on, and I'll show you why I mean that now. Salamis stone has that going on in there. Also the perimeter of a Salamis stone, now it's damaged there, but if we use the umbilicus or the center axis of symmetry, which would connect to the Vitruvian Man by Da Vinci, and this actually fits perfectly on there, but as in Vitruvian Man, what we have is a 2 to 3 ratio, but the perimeter of a Salamis stone also incorporates the samian foot, or Samos, as in Pythagoras of Samos, which was another unit of measure. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units coming together, incorporated in this tool, this Salamis stone. Now it just so happens that at 3.84 feet, the width is the square root of 5 Egyptian royal cubits within 1/3 of a millimeter. Extraordinary level of precision, even pretty much by modern standards, to get that level. And the square root of 5 is so wonderfully connected to the golden ratio as well. So a 2 to 1 rectangle would give you the square root of 5. But so this is a tool. The Folkestone drums is a calibration tool. Now if we go over to the red pyramid, we have this capstone. Now that's what it looks like now. It has been altered. I would call that an act of vandalism. Mr. ZH was in charge at the time, and this is what happened. But the pyramid, as it was, and it was pieced together, it would be 1 meter high and pi over 2 meters wide, creating a 7 to 11 ratio. Now pi over 2 meters is equal to 3 Egyptian royal cubits. But there's also the foot, the meter, and the cubit of Alan Green as touched, but that would also so 1 foot plus 1 cubit, Egyptian royal cubit, plus 1 meter is 6 foot within splitting hairs again. And the meter, the foot, and the cubit relationship in regards to a 1 meter pendulum, which creates a 1 second, 1 meter measurement of time, a measurement of length, which joins to the Egyptian royal cubit at 86,400 seconds per day. Thinking about the pyramid in 3 dimensions, and you get the size of the earth there if you include the socle and sockets, etc. But so this the pyramidion cap here, 3 Egyptian raw cubits, 1 meter high, 7:11 ratio. That is the Great Pyramid, which is 440. Now, I've done a video on no one side of a pyramid is exactly the same, but as a very good approximate, it's 440 by 280 Egyptian raw cubits high, which gives it a 7:11 ratio, just like the pyramid cap at the Red Pyramid. And the Egyptian raw cubit. Now we go over to, this is from a grave hoard found in Varna on the Black Sea coast in Bulgaria. Amazing metallurgy, some really interesting stuff going on here, and amongst the finds was this bowl and also this gold plate. Now the bowl itself, which is at least 6,000 years old, about 4,000 BC, predates the official age of the Old Kingdom by 1,000 years. At least it is 1 Egyptian raw cubit in diameter. But we also have this gold plate with these interesting little holes marked in there. And so 4 of these gold plates across, or 3 along. Now, so this in itself incorporates the Egyptian raw cubit, which is used for Great Pyramids, for instance. So the height 3:4 ratio fits in there well. So there we see the gold plate. Now that's so from corner to corner, 3-4-5 triangle, the first of the Pythagorean triplets, which also describes the Khafre's pyramid. 3-4-5 triangles, and that just happens to be a 3:2 ratio, which is the Vesica Pisces or Vesica Piscis. Rope stretches. So the Vesica would nicely fit in there, 2 of them next to each other. That way it creates a 3:12 triangle, and okay, we'll get to that. But so the Vesica there, which has the Egyptian raw cubit on that bowl, 3-4-5 triangle. If we superimpose the Salamis stone, it is at a 3:2 ratio, and that would fit on there nicely as well. So the Vesica 3-4-5, Khafre's pyramid, the Egyptian raw cubit, and well, the Great Pyramid is in here as well. But firstly, this 3:12 triangle, Pythagorean theorem. 3 squared plus 12 squared is 153. Therefore, the hypotenuse is the square root of 153, which is 12.36931, which is depending on the cycle, well, it's pretty much spot on. It is the number of full moons per year is a square root of 153. Now the Vesica in itself is a 265 to 1. Well, square root of 3. Beautiful stuff's going on there. So now if you look at the gold plates, that it has the geometry of the Great Pyramid in there, pi and phi amongst other things is going on. Great Pyramid plan, Vesica Piscis, Pisces. Well, what do we have in the rhombus? 30, 60, 90 degree set square, which would also be incorporated in the gold plate here at the Varna find. So the Egyptian raw cubit, Great Pyramid proportions, Vesica. Vesica describes a 3-4-5 triangle of Khafre's pyramid. Systems of geometry, systems of measurement, embedded in architecture, just like the Salamis stone. The Anne Balkans and J. Kaproff have examined the Parthenon. Wonderful stuff going on in there. 2:3, 3:4 ratios, very musical. Is the Hermetic constant, 2:3, is embedded throughout the Parthenon. The Red Pyramid capstone have the 1 meter, 1 second pendulum, 3 Egyptian raw cubits at the base, 7:11 ratio, just like the Great Pyramid. And just so happens that the columns of the Parthenon, including the architrave, is a 14, so 3:11, 3:11, which is a 14:11, which is it's the 7:11 ratio. So if you draw a triangle, right angle triangle, that's a 14:11 triangle. Basically squaring the circle, essentially. Proportions of Earth, relative size of Earth and Moon, also embedded in there at 27.3%. Measure, and the truth shall set you free. So this is just an intro to the Folkestone drums and the Longfoot, and that we see these tools for standardizing measure are actually quite an ancient thing, lending a lot of credence to the geometry measurements of the Falkland drums. More to come in the next part. Cheers, have a good one.